What if the pattern that built the stars also built you? What if a single design, carved into stone 6,000 years ago, still shapes our science today? What if every atom, every heartbeat, every thought was obeying an ancient geometric law? What if the flower of life isn't a symbol at all, but the blueprint of existence itself? And what if the universe has been trying to show us this pattern since the very beginning? What if the patterns carved into ancient stone were more than decoration? What if they whispered a code that binds galaxies to atoms, gods to mortals, mind to matter? What if a single symbol could reveal how consciousness gives birth to creation itself? Across temples, tombs, and manuscripts, one pattern repeats, a lattice of circles pulsing like the heartbeat of eternity. They call it the flower of life. Yet behind its calm geometry lies a secret obsession that has haunted mystics, scholars, and scientists alike. Because this flower does not grow in gardens, it blossoms within the structure of existence itself. Every 3 seconds, a question pulls you deeper. Why does this symbol appear in Egypt, China, India, and even medieval cathedrals, as if guided by one unseen architect? Why were the ancients so convinced it carried the key to divine creation? And why, in an age ruled by data, are we still hypnotized by its symmetry? To ask these questions is to touch the threshold of something vast, a geometry that speaks before words, an echo of perfection that the universe itself seems to hum. The flower of life, so simple at first glance, is the universe thinking in circles. Archaeologists trace its earliest appearances to Abydos, Egypt, engraved into the granite pillars of the Temple of Osiris. The lines are so precise, they seem cut by light. 6,000 years have passed, yet the symbol has not aged. It feels alive. Identical patterns appear in China beneath guardian fu dogs, in India within Hindu yantras, and even in Italy, sketched by Da Vinci's restless hand. Different lands, same design. Coincidence? Or memory older than civilization itself? Each culture saw in those circles the same message: creation, repeating itself through infinite motion, matter emerging from mind, life unfolding from geometry. The pattern begins with a single circle, unity, the infinite potential. From that, another circle expands, overlapping the first, forming the Vesica Pisces, the womb of creation. Continue this motion 6 times, and the seed of life appears. Expand again, and the flower of life blooms. Within it hides the fruit of life, the map of the Metatron's cube, and the 5 Platonic solids, shapes that ancient philosophers believed formed everything that exists. In its petals, light becomes matter, vibration becomes form. What seems artistic is actually mathematical. What seems mystical is the architecture of the cosmos itself. Every 3 seconds, the pattern hooks your eyes, your breath, your thoughts. Circles turn into hexagons, hexagons into stars, stars into lattices that mirror atoms. The flower of life whispers, "There are no straight lines in nature." Its perfection emerges from motion, from the dance of expansion and return. The ancients saw this as proof that the universe is not chaos, but consciousness, expressed through design. Modern physics echoes them. Energy curves, space bends, light spirals. Even DNA follows the same rhythm. Each cell, each galaxy, is a petal of the same unseen flower. But what makes everyone obsessed with it today? Perhaps it's because the flower of life offers something we've lost: a visual language that reunites science and spirit. In an era where data feels soulless and faith feels blind, this pattern promises a third path: knowledge that feels sacred. Artists tattoo it on skin. Architects weave it into glass domes. Digital designers encode it in AI art. They chase the same revelation the ancients saw, that behind complexity lies elegant repetition, a divine recursion, folding infinity into beauty. Every 3 seconds, it calls the mind back to wonder. Look closer, and you realize the flower of life is not just drawn, it is grown. Its geometry mirrors biological processes, cells dividing, spirals unfolding, resonance expanding. Philosophers of sacred geometry believed that by meditating on it, one could align the microcosm of the self with the macrocosm of the universe. The circles become breath, the breath becomes rhythm, and rhythm becomes awareness. Each expansion is an act of becoming, each intersection a choice. And at the heart of it all, stillness, the silent point from which everything moves yet never departs. Terence Howard once called it a 6,000-year-old secret, hiding the curvature of reality. He wasn't alone. Pythagoras heard its harmony in music. Da Vinci traced its arcs, seeking divine proportion. Newton sought its symmetry in gravity's pull. They all believed geometry was the handwriting of God, and whether they studied spirals, orbits, or light, they found the same truth. Energy never travels straight. It curves, it dances, it loops. The flower of life became their teacher, reminding humanity that perfection isn't static. It breathes, oscillates, evolves. That's why, even now, we can't look away. Each 30-second breath of this story is a meditation. The flower of life draws you in like a hypnotic mandala, aligning thought with vibration. Its repetition isn't redundancy, it's revelation. The more you gaze, the more it reveals. The seed, the cell, the solar system, all following the same ratio, the same divine blueprint. The golden mean, phi, the Fibonacci sequence, all echo here, like chords in the music of creation. It's not just art, it's the memory of the cosmos written in circles. To understand it is to remember where you came from and what you truly are. So why is everyone obsessed with the flower of life? Because somewhere, deep down, we recognize it. Our neurons fire in its web. Our heartbeat sinks to its rhythm. Our lives expand and contract in its eternal breath. It reminds us that creation is not a myth, but a pattern, one we live, breathe, and repeat every moment. And as you stare into its endless symmetry, the hooks of curiosity become chords of remembrance. This isn't just geometry, it's Genesis drawn in light. And this is only the beginning. In the next chapter, we unfold how this ancient flower became the map of reality itself. What if creation itself followed a code? What if every atom, planet, and heartbeat pulsed to a single hidden rhythm? What if the same pattern that formed the cosmos also designed your DNA? These are not poetic guesses. They're mathematical echoes. The flower of life isn't just art. It's the blueprint of becoming. From a single point emerges motion. From motion comes space. From space, form. The ancients called this sacred geometry. Today, scientists call it the language of symmetry. Every 3 seconds, the pattern repeats. Life, expansion, contraction, an eternal breath written into the bones of the universe. Long before equations or telescopes, the priests of Egypt watched this dance unfold in the night sky. The stars rose and fell in precise cycles, mirroring the geometry they carved into temple walls. They believed this pattern wasn't decoration, it was instruction. The circles of the flower of life represented the cycles of the sun, the moon, and the soul. To them, geometry was divinity, translated into matter. Each curve was a prayer, each intersection a doorway. To draw the flower was to imitate creation itself, tracing the steps of the gods who once moved across the heavens. Every hook pulls you deeper. Why circles, not lines? Because the circle is eternal. It has no beginning, no end, only flow. Straight lines divide, circles connect. The ancients knew this instinctively. The circle symbolized the infinite, the womb, the divine feminine principle. From one circle to the next, the flower of life grows as consciousness unfolds, reflecting the balance between creation and destruction, expansion and return. Within these patterns, mystery schools saw maps of human ascension, geometry as meditation, proportion as prayer. To study it was to remember what the universe already knew. When Da Vinci sketched the flower of life, he wasn't merely exploring art, he was decoding architecture. His notebooks show a mind obsessed with divine proportion, the ratio we call phi, 1.618, the golden mean. Every 3 seconds, the same question echoes. Why does this number keep appearing in shells, galaxies, even faces? Because phi is the rhythm of life, the geometry of harmony. Da Vinci saw in the flower a bridge between science and soul. His Vitruvian Man stands not just as anatomy, but as cosmic alignment. Humanity inscribed within the circle, mirroring the universe itself. Even Isaac Newton, father of modern physics, whispered of hidden geometry. Beneath his laws and formulas lay an esoteric curiosity, alchemy, numerology, divine design. He studied patterns, not for beauty, but for truth. The flower of life seemed to promise a universal key, a cipher connecting energy to matter. Each overlapping arc spoke of vibration, of resonance, of the invisible forces holding reality together. 3 seconds pass, and another question unfolds. What if the universe isn't built from particles, but from patterns? Modern physics quietly agrees. Everything, from quarks to quasars, vibrates within a geometric field. Terence Howard once said, "There are no straight lines in nature." He's right. Galaxies spin in spirals, rivers bend, DNA twists, even light curves under gravity's pull. The flower of life captures this curvature, its geometry in motion. Imagine space not as emptiness, but as an ocean of vibration, folding and unfolding itself. Every point connects to every other, woven into a vast lattice of energy. This is what sacred geometry reveals. The universe is not still. It's alive, breathing through fractal symmetry. What appears static is only movement so perfect it feels eternal. Now pause for 30 seconds and breathe with the pattern. You'll feel it. Subtle, circular, alive. The flower of life mirrors your breath, the heartbeat of the cosmos echoing in your chest. Ancient initiates meditated upon it to align their consciousness with divine order. In Kabbalah, it's seen as the tree of life's hidden foundation. In Sufism, it's the dance of creation, the geometry of divine love. Every culture found its reflection here because the pattern doesn't belong to one faith. It belongs to existence itself. To see it clearly is to remember that separation is an illusion. What modern minds call mathematics, ancient temples called revelation. Geometry was never invented, it was discovered. When two circles meet, their overlap forms the Vesica Piscis, the birth portal of light, symbol of duality and union. From that union, the flower unfolds endlessly. The Egyptians associated this with Atum, the self-created god. In Greece, it became the seed of Logos, divine reason. In India, it symbolized Brahman's breath, creation and dissolution in infinite rhythm. Each culture found new language for the same truth. Geometry is consciousness, folding in on itself, thinking in form. Every 3 seconds, another revelation. Within the flower's structure lies Metatron's cube, the sacred container of all platonic solids. The cube, tetrahedron, octahedron, dodecahedron, and icosahedron, shapes that define all matter. Plato taught that these forms were the letters of creation, the alphabet of existence: earth, air, fire, water, and ether, all born from geometry. The ancients believed the gods spoke not in words, but in patterns. To know the flower was to read the original scripture of the universe. To trace it was to whisper the same equations that build galaxies and souls alike. So why does this ancient diagram still capture humanity's imagination? Because it's more than symbol, it's memory. Every atom, every cell, every heartbeat hums in its rhythm. The flower of life is the cosmos remembering itself through you. And that's why we're obsessed. Not because it's beautiful, but because it's true. It reminds us that life, for all its chaos, obeys a secret harmony. In the next chapter, we'll follow this pattern as it travels through the temples of Egypt, Greece, and Babylon, revealing how geometry became the silent architecture of civilization. Who drew the first circle? Who stood before the stone and traced perfection into its surface? Who whispered geometry into eternity? Every mystery has architects, and the flower of life is no exception. Somewhere in the forgotten dawn of civilization, a lineage of builders, priests, and seers preserved a code that could not die. The pattern appears wherever humanity awakens, from the Nile to the Indus, from Sumer to the Andes. It's as if unseen hands guided the same compass across continents. What force united them? What memory did they share? Every 3 seconds, another question spirals open. In Egypt, they were the house of life, scribes of Heliopolis, keepers of the sacred blueprints. They saw the universe as a temple, the temple as the universe. To carve a wall was to mirror the heavens. The flower of life etched in Abydos wasn't decoration, it was invocation. The architects believed that when geometry touched matter, spirit entered stone. Each line was a hymn, each ratio a resonance. The builders weren't engineers. They were initiates shaping energy into form. The same geometry that held stars in orbit held the walls upright. The temple stood because the cosmos willed it. Every 3 seconds, a new hook. Imagine standing beside them, chisels glowing in torchlight, dust swirling like galaxies. The air hums with calculation and prayer. Circles intersect until the stone begins to shimmer. They are crafting the pattern of life itself, one arc at a time. The master builder steps back, not to admire, but to listen. Geometry sings. The same ratios found in sound waves echo through his design. To him, numbers aren't quantities. They are qualities. 3 is motion, 6 is harmony, 12 is completion. The wall becomes a score. The cosmos, its orchestra. To the Sumerians, geometry governed the gods. They built ziggurats aligned with the stars, their steps ascending in precise harmonic proportion. Every level reflected a sphere of existence, earth below, heaven above, the flower of life between them as the bridge. The priests called it me, the laws of cosmic order. To defy geometry was to defy divinity itself. They measured shadows, watched planets, and recorded ratios in clay. Each wedge-marked tablet carried the same secret truth: pattern is power. The gods were not distant. They were mathematical, their language written in frequency and form. Travel east, and the Indus Valley speaks the same dialect of design. At Mohenjo-Daro, brickwork followed lunar ratios. Wells and courtyards spiraled like shells. Across the ocean, the Mayans encoded their calendars with identical geometry. Every 3 seconds, another civilization enters the frame. How did cultures separated by millennia and oceans construct the same symbolic flower. Either chance defied probability, or memory preceded migration. The ancients may have carried a shared inheritance, the geometry of creation. It was not taught, it was remembered, passed through initiation, not instruction. Every temple, pyramid, and mandala was a classroom for the soul. Then came Greece, where philosophy replaced priesthood. Pythagoras looked upon the flower and heard music. He taught that number is the essence of all things, that harmony births matter. His disciples traced circles in sand as hymns to proportion. Later, Plato encoded these forms in the Timaeus, calling them the building blocks of the world. The philosopher's cave became a metaphor for awakening, the moment one sees beyond shadow into shape. What the Egyptians carved in granite, the Greeks translated into thought. Yet both sought the same revelation. Truth is geometric, consciousness mathematical. Every 3 seconds, curiosity tightens its grip. How did this knowledge survive the collapse of empires? When Alexandria burned, when libraries turned to ash, geometry hid in secrecy. The Hermetic schools carried it beneath the surface of religion. In the Jewish Kabbalah, the flower transformed into the tree of life. In Islamic art, it became endless tessellation, geometry as devotion. Christian cathedrals inherited its ratios unknowingly. Gothic arches echoed the same Vesica Piscis that birthed light in Genesis. Even in silence, the pattern persisted. Empires fell, but proportion remained immortal. Medieval guilds guarded it as sacred craft. The masons of Europe carved the flower's skeleton into rose windows, stained glass blossoming with hidden symmetry. They called it the architect's secret. To them, every stone had consciousness, every measure morality. The lodge became a living diagram of the cosmos. Centuries later, the Renaissance resurrected the memory. Leonardo's compass traced the same paths as Thoth's stylus. Every 30 seconds of narration carries the same heartbeat of awe. The past speaks in circles. The flower never disappeared. It merely disguised itself as architecture, art, and science. By the Enlightenment, humanity called its mysteries physics. Yet even Newton kept an alchemist's heart. He searched scripture for geometry, gravity for God. His prisms bent light into color, the same spectrum hidden in the flower's arcs. Modern engineers calculate orbital paths using equations that mirror sacred ratios. Whether they know it or not, they're continuing the work of the lost architects. The formulas of today are the prayers of antiquity rewritten. Every 3 seconds, the same thought returns. Science is only mysticism translated into measurement. The compass never left the hand, it just changed names. So who were the lost architects of the flower of life? They were us, humanity remembering itself across ages. Builders, mystics, mathematicians, dreamers, all tracing the same pattern through different tongues. Their legacy whispers that creation is participatory, that to understand geometry is to join the act of Genesis. The flower of life isn't just drawn on stone, it's unfolding in consciousness, one revelation at a time. In the next chapter, we journey into the hidden temples of light and sound, where geometry becomes vibration, and vibration becomes the voice of creation itself. What if light itself were conscious? What if sound were geometry in motion? What if every sacred temple was not a monument, but a resonating instrument built to tune the soul? These are not metaphors, they're measurements. The ancients carved equations into stone, but they sang them into space. The flower of life was their tuning fork, translating vibration into architecture. Every 3 seconds, a new hook of wonder opens. Could sound shape matter? And could light remember form? Inside those silent halls of antiquity, geometry became music, and music became the breath of creation. In Egypt, the Temple of Dendera was more than limestone. It was resonance. When priests chanted inside its chambers, sound waves spiraled across the vaulted ceilings, striking nodes aligned with the flower of life pattern. Each tone awakened the geometry etched upon the walls, as if the temple itself were listening. Acoustic engineers today confirm that these ancient spaces amplify harmonic frequencies with uncanny precision. Was this coincidence or design? To the ancients, vibration was divinity manifest. To speak was to shape. To sing was to summon. Every 30 seconds of their ritual was a calculation performed by voice. Across the desert at Abydos, where the earliest flower of life glows on granite, sound still behaves strangely. Stand beneath the archways, and a whisper travels like thunder. Archaeologists measure acoustic nodes perfectly spaced by the geometry of the engraved pattern. The same mathematics guiding the circles guides the echo. Every 3 seconds, curiosity tightens its hold. Did the builders know that frequency organizes matter? Modern physics calls it cymatics, sound forming pattern through vibration. Sand, water, and light dance into sacred geometry under certain tones. The ancients weren't imagining, they were remembering the universe's song. Travel to Greece, and the legacy of resonance evolves into philosophy. The amphitheaters of Epidaurus still carry a single word from stage to the highest row. No microphones, only mathematics. The radius of the arena follows the golden ratio. The audience becomes part of the instrument, each human body reflecting and absorbing tone. For the Greeks, harmony wasn't metaphorical, it was mechanical truth. Pythagoras measured intervals, discovered that strings vibrate by proportion, and declared, "The universe is number in motion." The flower of life became the invisible diagram behind every lyre, temple, and theory. Every 3 seconds, another revelation strikes. Light behaves the same way. Step into the pyramids at Giza, and you'll find shafts aligned with Orion and Sirius, focusing sunlight at precise moments of the year. These beams travel along geometric angles, matching the flower's internal ratios. The builders were mapping not myth, but physics, light, sound, and geometry. 3 aspects of one principle. Frequency creates form. Modern science echoes this through quantum vibration, photonics, and wave theory. The ancients expressed it through prayer and proportion. Today, we express it through equations, but both describe the same divine rhythm. In India, the temples of Khajuraho and Ellora vibrate with mantra. Chanting Om within their chambers reveals sustained resonance that lingers far beyond expectation. The design isn't random. The domes and corridors mimic the concentric circles of the flower of life. The sound does not end. It cycles, returning to its origin like consciousness looping through incarnation. Every 30-second breath of narration mirrors that endless return. The yogic masters taught that geometry exists within the body as chakras, spinning flowers of energy. To awaken them was to harmonize one's inner temple with the cosmic pattern of sound. The cathedrals of Europe inherited this sonic science, disguised as faith. Their rose windows blossom in exact flower of life symmetry, while the organs thunder frequencies that make stone tremble. The architects knew that when light filtered through stained glass at particular hours, color and vibration fused. Prayer became physics. The Gothic arch rises not only to heaven, but to resonance. Each bell toll, each choir note continues the ancient formula. Vibration arrow, geometry, arrow consciousness. Every 3 seconds, Another question blooms. Were these churches instruments built to tune humanity back to harmony with the divine field? Far to the east, Buddhist stupas and Tibetan mandalas preserve the same auditory geometry. Monks chant seed syllables arranged in spirals, each tone corresponding to a petal, each petal to a frequency, each frequency to a layer of mind. The mandala is the flower of life in meditation, sound drawn as form. When completed, it is destroyed, teaching that creation itself is impermanent vibration. Modern researchers measuring these rituals find that the tones induce coherence in brain waves, aligning neural patterns to the geometry of resonance. The ancients called it enlightenment. Neuroscience calls it synchronization. Every 3 seconds, the light shifts, the tone deepens, the story widens. Imagine if the entire universe is one vast temple, and galaxies are its resonant chambers. Stars hum in measurable frequencies. NASA records them as music. The flower of life might be the cosmic blueprint of those harmonies, the silent score that matter plays. From subatomic oscillations to planetary orbits, every level of existence sings the same song in different keys. The ancients heard it through intuition. Today, we record it with machines, but the melody has never stopped. It is creation itself, breathing. So the temples of light and sound were never merely places, they were experiences. Each was built to remind humanity that we exist inside music made solid. The flower of life was their sheet of cosmic notation, showing how vibration becomes visibility. Light paints the geometry, sound sculpts the matter. When you listen deeply, you can still hear it, the resonance of origin echoing through your bones. Every heartbeat, every breath, every word you speak participates in that eternal composition. In the next chapter, we follow this harmony into the modern world, where science begins to rediscover what the ancients already knew, that reality itself is singing. What if light were a language? What if every beam carried a message written in geometry? What if photons themselves were letters of creation? Each ray that touches your skin is older than memory, younger than time. Light doesn't just illuminate, it communicates. The ancients believed that within its vibration lay codes of consciousness. Every 3 seconds, a new question blazes. Can light think? Can it remember? Can it teach? The flower of life reveals that light is not merely seen, it is spoken by the universe to tell matter how to exist. In the temples we left behind, priests guided light through shafts and mirrors like sentences of a forgotten tongue. When the sun rose on the equinox, beams struck precise angles measured by the ratios of the flower of life. At that moment, the temple spoke. Light became voice, geometry became grammar. Each shaft aligned not by chance, but by law, the law of sacred proportion. The ancients knew that information travels not through books, but through beams. Every 30 seconds of illumination was a syllable of divine syntax. To stand within that light was to be read by creation itself. Modern physics quietly confirms their intuition. Light is dual, particle and wave, form and frequency. Every 3 seconds, another realization arrives. The flower of life anticipates this duality. Its circles capture both structure and motion, frozen light in mathematical form. Quantum scientists speak of photons as messengers that carry information between dimensions. Ancient priests said the same, that light is spirit in transit. When a sunbeam passes through water and births a rainbow, it is geometry turning into color. Color is the dialect of light, and each shade tells a different story of frequency. In Egypt, color was code. Blue for divinity, green for life, gold for the eternal soul. They painted these tones according to ratios hidden within the flower of life. Each pigment vibrated to a mathematical note. Every 3 seconds, your eyes translate color into emotion because your cells still remember that language. In the Book of the Dead, light was the pathway to resurrection. Souls literally transformed into rays. To be enlightened meant to become light. Our modern phrases still echo this truth. We see the light, we shine, we illuminate. The idioms are remnants of an ancient science. Every 3 seconds, a beam bends through your retina, a reminder that vision is alchemy. When light enters the eye, it transforms into electrical fire. Your brain translates that geometry into image, an image into meaning. You are the temple through which light reads itself. Mystics called this the mirror of God. What you see outside is actually the universe looking back through you. Every blink is a pause in the sentence of reality. Every photon is a word spelled in fire. To see clearly is to listen to light's grammar without translating it into fear. In Greece, philosophers connected light to truth. They called the soul a spark of the sun. Plato's allegory of the cave wasn't about shadows. It was about returning to illumination. The flower of life hid in their geometry as the ratio that governed the angle of light entering the mind. Every 30 seconds, the narrative unfolds like daybreak. We realize that knowledge is light reflecting upon itself. The Greeks believed to know was to see, and to see was to remember. The entire cosmos was a classroom made of luminous symbols, teaching souls to awaken. In the East, light became illumination in the most literal sense. Buddhists spoke of the clear light mind, a radiance beyond thought. Hindus called it jyoti, the inner lamp of the heart. The flower of life appears in yantras and mandalas as circles of radiance, light visualized as geometry. Every 3 seconds, each petal seems to pulse with luminosity. When meditators visualize these patterns, their brain waves synchronize with light frequencies measurable on EEG scans. Modern science calls it coherence. The ancients called it enlightenment. Both mean alignment with the original frequency of being. But what is the message light sends? Each photon carries information about the place it came from. A beam from a distant star is a record of its birth. When you look up at the night sky, you are reading ancient letters still traveling across time. The flower of life reminds us that space is not empty. It is a library of light. Every 3 seconds, another beam arrives, another story told in color. To see the universe is to read its autobiography, written in photons. Light is memory, and you are its witness. In modern laboratories, scientists speak of biophotons, tiny flashes of light emitted by living cells. Your body literally glows, too faint for the eye, but real nonetheless. Every 30 seconds, your cells emit trillions of these quantum sparks. They form patterns, geometric, coherent, alive. It's as though the flower of life has folded itself into flesh. Healers through ages called this the aura. Physicists call it biophoton emission. Different names, same phenomenon. Life as light communicating with itself. Each organ a note, each pulse a phrase, each being a sentence in the poem of existence. So the secret language of light was never lost. It was forgotten behind the noise of machines and the rush of thought. But every beam, every spark in your eye, still speaks the ancient syntax of geometry. To learn it again is not to study, but to remember. When you close your eyes, light continues within you, painting circles in the dark. The flower of life blooms not only in stone or space, but in the quiet of consciousness itself. And in that realization, we see why we're obsessed. Because the universe is still speaking to us, in light, in pattern, in the language we were born to understand. Next chapter, the hidden mathematics of divinity. What if God could be graphed? What if the divine was never a mystery of faith, but a formula hidden in plain sight? What if every number was a prayer, every ratio a revelation? For thousands of years, sages and scientists have hunted the arithmetic of creation. The flower of life whispers that the universe is not random, it is measured. Every 3 seconds, another curiosity opens. Could infinity itself have structure? The ancients believed it did, and they carved that conviction into stone. To them, mathematics wasn't human invention. It was the fingerprint of divinity. At the heart of this faith in numbers stands the golden ratio, phi 1.618. It appears in shells, storms, galaxies, and the bones of our hands. To the Egyptians, it defined beauty. To the Greeks, harmony. To mystics, perfection incarnate. Every 3 seconds, another wonder surfaces. Why does this single proportion keep appearing in everything alive? The answer may be simple. The universe prefers balance that breathes. In the flower of life, every circle contains phi within its distances, a silent signature repeating across scales. From atoms to stars, this ratio choreographs the rhythm between chaos and order. Pythagoras taught that numbers were divine beings. All is number, he said, and meant it literally. His tetractys, a triangle built of 10 points, was a sacred emblem of cosmic harmony, each layer echoing the music of spheres. Every 30 seconds of his teaching was rhythm set to geometry. He believed that when a lyre string vibrates in perfect ratio, the soul hears God. The flower of life is that same music, frozen into form. Its symmetry hums in silence, a visible melody where every intersection is a note struck by the universe itself. Plato extended this vision through the Platonic solids, those 5 perfect shapes hidden within the flower's grid. He assigned each element its geometry: earth to cube, air to octahedron, fire to tetrahedron, water to icosahedron, and ether to dodecahedron. Every 3 seconds, another question emerges. Did these shapes define creation or describe it? For Plato, they were both, the alphabet and the poem. He wrote in the Timaeus that the world's soul was proportion itself. To know geometry was to converse with the architect of reality, not through faith, but through ratio. In Egypt, priests of Heliopolis used number as ritual. The Great Pyramid encodes pi and phi with uncanny precision. The ratio of its height to its base equals half the circle's circumference to its radius. Coincidence or comprehension? Every 3 seconds, the pattern tightens. The pyramid was a mathematical resurrection machine, guiding light upward through geometry. Standing within it, one enters a calculator built of stone, where every angle equals invocation. The ancients believed divinity could be summoned through symmetry, that harmony itself was holy. Centuries later, in Renaissance Europe, Leonardo da Vinci and Luca Pacioli called these ratios divina proportione, the divine proportion. Da Vinci sketched humans within circles and squares, proving that our anatomy mirrors cosmic mathematics. Every 30 seconds, his quill connected flesh to formula. He wrote that beauty lives where proportion hides. Artists, architects, even composers began chasing these numbers, trying to capture the feeling of perfection they implied. The flower of life lingered in their notebooks, an unspoken teacher showing that God does not paint with chaos, but with calculation. Every 3 seconds, we leap forward into modern science, and the pattern remains. Electrons orbit in quantized ratios. Planets spin in harmonic distances. Physicists find constants, Planck's length, fine structure, repeating with sacred precision. The flower of life anticipated them all, mapping vibration long before mathematics formalized it. When Einstein described space curving around mass, he echoed ancient geometry. Nothing travels straight. Everything follows proportion. To decode the universe, one must think like the builder, through number. Mathematics is the prayer creation whispers to itself. But not all numbers behave politely. The ancients feared the square root of 2, the irrational, the unending. Every 3 seconds, a paradox rises. How can the infinite live inside the finite? They called it the serpent of chaos, yet worshipped it too. The flower of life contains both perfection and imperfection, order and uncertainty. Its beauty depends on ratios that never fully resolve, like the tension between divine and human. Perhaps that is the secret. God hides in the decimals, the unreachable remainders that make existence interesting. Perfection, after all, needs contrast to be seen. Kabbalists mapped number onto letters, turning mathematics into mysticism. 10 Sephiroth, 22 paths, each node a numerical vibration. The tree of life and the flower of life overlap precisely, one spiritual, one geometric. Every 30 seconds this union deepens. To recite a name of God was to invoke its numerical frequency. To meditate upon the pattern was to tune the soul to divine wavelength. Modern physicists call this resonance. Mystics called it prayer. 2 languages, 1 meaning. Reality responds to mathematics spoken with intent. So the hidden mathematics of divinity is not hidden at all. It's everywhere, pulsing behind sight, sound, and thought. The flower of life stands as proof that God counts, and counts beautifully. Each line is logic wrapped in mystery, each ratio an echo of the first equation ever written. Unity dividing to know itself. Every 3 seconds, the pattern reminds us that numbers are not cold. They are alive, breathing through galaxies and hearts alike. In the next chapter, we descend from theory into flesh, exploring how these sacred ratios shape not only stars, but the architecture of the human body itself. What if your body was a temple built from equations? What if your heartbeat pulsed to the same rhythm that moves galaxies? What if flesh itself were geometry made visible? Every 3 seconds, another question unfolds, because the flower of life is not only out there in the cosmos, it's written within you. The ancients whispered that man is the measure of all things. They meant it literally. Our bones, our blood, our breath, all obey sacred proportion. The same mathematics that sculpted the pyramids sculpted your face. To know thyself, they said, is to remember the blueprint of creation in your own form. From crown to soul, the human figure repeats the ratios of the golden mean. The distance from head to navel to feet echoes phi, 1.618. The span of your arms forms a circle around your heart. The same circle Da Vinci drew inside the square of earth and sky. Every 30 seconds of narration reveals another layer. The flower of life is the skeleton behind symmetry. Your fingers spiral like nautilus shells. Your lungs branch in fractal rhythm. Even your heartbeat follows geometric cadence, expanding and contracting like overlapping circles of divine design. Every 3 seconds, another wonder appears. The DNA double helix mirrors the same geometry. 2 serpentine strands weave through a ratio matching phi. Turn it sideways, and you see the vesica piscis, the first shape born of the flower. Ancient symbols weren't imagination. They were anatomy. Mystics said the body was the microcosm, the universe in miniature. Modern genetics agrees. Within every cell is information encoded in harmonic spirals. Life does not crawl from chaos. It blossoms from proportion. You are living sacred geometry, walking upright, the flower of life, folded into muscle and memory. The skeleton itself obeys cosmic ratios, the spacing of vertebrae, the angle of ribs, the curvature of the spine. All trace Fibonacci progression. Even joints articulate at harmonic intervals that maximize movement with minimum energy. The ancients built temples with the same efficiency. Every 30 seconds, the realization deepens. Architecture and anatomy are reflections of one architect. To move gracefully is to calculate unconsciously. Dance becomes geometry expressed through flesh. When you stretch, pray, or breathe, you redraw the flower within your own form, one motion at a time. The heart, too, is a mathematician. Each beat follows a rhythm of contraction and expansion that mirrors planetary orbits. The ratio of systole to diastole echoes phi to 1. The electric fields it generates form spirals measurable outside the body. Geometry radiating emotion. Every 3 seconds, that pulse reminds you, you are not a machine. You are music. The Egyptians called the heart the seat of the soul because it moved like the universe, oscillating between silence and sound. Every heartbeat is an echo of the first vibration that began creation itself. Within the skull lies the brain, an instrument of symmetry. 2 hemispheres mirror duality, logic and intuition, sun and moon, left and right. Their bridge, the corpus callosum, is the vesica piscis incarnate. The pineal gland sits at the geometric center, aligned to the golden mean. Every 30 seconds, another revelation arises. Your thoughts travel in wave patterns identical to musical octaves. The flower of life exists here as frequency, not form. Meditation slows these waves until geometry and consciousness fuse, producing visions of circles within circles, the mind remembering its own architecture. Ancient healers mapped this design through chakra and meridian. 7 centers spin along the spine, each a color, each a frequency, each a petal of the flower turned inward. Every 3 seconds, energy spirals through them, like breath through a flute. Modern instruments now detect these electromagnetic vortices. The same harmonics measured in sound healing appear in cellular vibration. The ancients didn't guess, they listened. The human body is the most sophisticated resonant structure ever built, tuned to the same scale that governs planets. To heal is to retune, to remember resonance. Artists of the Renaissance painted saints inside mandalas, the vesica piscis of divine birth, symbolizing the body as portal between heaven and earth. The same almond shape frames the womb of creation within you. Every 30 seconds of reflection shows why life repeats form so faithfully. Geometry is efficient, and divinity wastes nothing. Bones, leaves, galaxies, all obey logarithmic spirals. Even fingerprints trace micromandalas of infinite uniqueness inside universal order. You carry proof that God designs through recurrence, sculpting difference from pattern. Every 3 seconds, awareness circles back to the flower. Its 6-petaled seed mirrors cellular division, the first moments of life. 1 cell becomes 2, then 4, then 8, forming the geometry of the seed of life. Before a heartbeat, before a thought, your body drew that pattern by instinct. Biology begins with geometry. Geometry begins with consciousness. The miracle isn't that life fits the pattern, it's that the pattern is life, continuously expressing itself as you. To study it is to participate in the oldest act, creation, knowing itself. So the divine architecture of the human body is not metaphor, It's mathematics embodied. You are the temple, the compass, the equation, the prayer. Every cell hums the same proportion that spins galaxies. Every breath redraws the flower of life in invisible air. The mystics were right. Divinity was never distant. It beats beneath your ribs. And perhaps that's why humanity remains obsessed. Because when we trace the flower, we're tracing ourselves. In the next chapter, we step outside the body once more, following this geometry into the rise of civilizations that built entire worlds upon its sacred ratios. What if entire civilizations rose from geometry? What if cities, temples, and empires were arranged not by chance, but by proportion? What if the flower of life was the unseen blueprint behind the world itself? Every 3 seconds, another question opens like a door through time. Across continents, ancient builders seem to share one obsession: translating sacred pattern into stone. They believed harmony was not luxury, but law. To violate proportion was to defy the gods. To align with it was to join creation's rhythm. The result? Cities that still hum with mathematical divinity thousands of years later. Begin in Egypt, where it all begins. The Nile's course mirrors the spine of a giant human figure, the land itself designed as body. Each temple along its banks marks a chakra, from Philae to Abydos to Giza. The flower of life at Abydos wasn't isolated art. It was the seed from which the entire civilization bloomed. Every 30 seconds, the realization deepens. Pyramids, sphinx, and temples align to celestial ratios matching the pattern's curves. Egypt's architects were cosmic engineers, their surveying rods compasses of the divine. They built not for mortality, but for memory. Travel east to Mesopotamia, the land between rivers where mathematics was born. Ziggurats rose in steps of 7, mirroring the circles of the flower. Each level corresponded to a planet, each angle to a frequency. Every 3 seconds, the pattern hooks the mind again. Did the gods demand stairways, or did geometry demand form? Clay tablets reveal they measured heaven in ratios, mapping stars through harmonic numbers. To them, to build was to imitate creation's architecture. The city itself was a diagram of divine order, each brick a syllable in the sentence of God. Greece refined what Egypt and Sumer began. Athens unfolded according to golden geometry. The Parthenon's columns tilted by a fraction to create perfect illusion of straightness. The entire structure breathes in phi. Every 30 seconds of narration rings with precision. Pythagoras, Euclid, and Plato turned stone into philosophy. They saw the city as an instrument for the soul, tuned through proportion. Democracy, logic, and art sprang from the same seed. Symmetry. The flower of life had become political geometry. Harmony made law. Across the sea, Rome expanded the pattern into empire. Roads met at right angles, forums aligned to solar rising. The Pantheon's dome, a perfect sphere, is inscribed by circles of the flower. Light streams through its oculus like the eye of God, watching its own design. Every 3 seconds, another thought strikes. Even conquest follows geometry. Roman engineers spoke of ordinatio, divine order in measurement. Their roads, aqueducts, and arches became arteries of sacred symmetry, carrying pattern across the world. In Asia, China's Forbidden City and India's Vedic temples echo the same ratios. The layout of Beijing aligns north to south through a central axis mirroring the flower's vertical stem. At Angkor Wat, Cambodian builders encoded planetary distances into courtyards. Every 30 seconds, another realization. These cultures were not isolated, they were resonating. Their architects knew that when geometry is perfect, spirit descends. Temples became instruments tuning the earth to the frequency of heaven. Journey to the Americas, and the flower blooms again. The Mayans and Aztecs built cities that tracked equinox light across stone serpents. Teotihuacan's Avenue of the Dead matches the Orion Belt alignment of Giza. Every 3 seconds, curiosity tightens. How could civilizations separated by oceans share the same stellar map? Perhaps geometry travels through consciousness, not culture. The Inca built Cusco as a puma, its spine following sacred curves. Even in the jungle, pattern remained law. Medieval Europe reawakened this memory. Gothic cathedrals rose like stone flowers, their rose windows mirroring the original pattern. Builders called themselves Children of Solomon, keepers of divine geometry. Every 30 seconds of construction was ritual. Light filtered through colored glass at angles calculated by golden ratio. Architecture became prayer, frozen in matter. When monks chanted inside, sound and form merged, reviving the temples of light and sound from earlier ages. The Renaissance made the flower visible again. Brunelleschi's domes, Da Vinci's sketches, and Raphael's canvases all breathed its ratios. Even city planners like Leon Battista Alberti mapped streets as hexagonal webs. Every 3 seconds, another revelation. Beauty was measurable because divinity was mathematical. The human form, the cathedral, the city, all reflected one geometry in different keys. Civilization was a symphony written in stone, and the flower of life was its score. So civilizations built on the flower of life were not imitating each other. They were remembering the same origin. From pyramid to pagoda, from cathedral to temple, humanity kept redrawing the cosmos upon Earth. Every building was a mirror, every city a mandala, every empire a temporary gesture of eternal design. Perhaps that is why we still wander through ruins and feel something sacred stir. Geometry outlives stone. In the next chapter, we enter the modern age, where science and technology rediscover the ancient pattern, proving that the flower of life is not a relic, but a blueprint for the future itself. What if the ancient pattern never vanished, but simply hid in plain sight? What if the same geometry, once etched in stone, now flows through circuits, screens, and data? What if the digital age is just the flower of life reborn in light? Every 3 seconds, another question flares. Are we rediscovering or recreating the sacred design? In the last century, scientists, artists, and visionaries have quietly rebuilt the bridge between mathematics and mysticism. They call it quantum physics, fractal art, biomimicry, but beneath every term is the same truth. Geometry is back, and it's alive. When Einstein curved space, he reopened the ancient door. His equations revealed that energy and matter follow shape. Every 30 seconds of scientific revelation echoed what priests once sang. Nothing moves straight. Then came Mandelbrot and fractal geometry, self-repeating patterns, endlessly smaller, yet identical. Every 3 seconds, the mind spirals deeper. Is this not the flower of life, reborn in numbers? From snowflakes to coastlines, nature confirmed what mystics knew. Creation loves recursion. What was once carved in temple stone now glows on computer screens, the same divine loop repeating in code. Quantum physicists speak of energy fields interlacing reality, grids, lattices, networks. They draw diagrams eerily resembling the flower's overlapping circles. Every 3 seconds, a new hook emerges. Is the unified field just the ancient pattern redescribed? String theory depicts vibrating loops of energy, each tone creating matter like sound sculpting sand. It is the physics of Genesis written in modern symbols. The scientific laboratory has become a temple of light again, oscilloscopes for altars, frequencies for prayers. In the 1960s and 70s, artists rediscovered geometry as revelation. Visionaries like Alex Gray and M.C. Escher wove impossible symmetries that mirrored sacred ratios. Every 30 seconds, their paintings and prints whispered the same ancient story. Form is consciousness, visible. Then came psychedelic art, mandala murals, and digital animations, each a return to the flower. In their spirals and tessellations, the collective unconscious remembered its geometry. Even music followed, from Pink Floyd's oscillations to binaural beats tuned to 432 Hz, sound and form merged once more. Architecture joined the Renaissance. Buckminster Fuller's geodesic domes, Gaudí's organic arches, and modern biomimetic design all mirror the flower of life. Every 3 seconds, another example appears in mind. Stadiums, museums, and eco-cities built on the logic of circles. Fuller called it synergetic geometry, a system where form follows harmony rather than force. In his vision, humans become co-creators with nature, not its rivals. The age of steel gave way to curves and light, returning architecture to its sacred root, resonance. Technology is now the new pyramid. Every microchip is a cathedral of pattern, millions of circuits etched like tiny mandalas. Engineers use fractal algorithms to compress data, simulate weather, design antennas, geometry as intelligence. Every 30 seconds, another truth emerges. The flower of life has moved inside machines. Even AI art and neural networks learn through pattern recognition, the same principle that built the cosmos. We've become digital priests of an electronic temple, unwittingly worshipping the old geometry through code. Every 3 seconds, the pattern finds a new medium, healing. Doctors speak of frequency medicine. Researchers map organs through vibrational signatures. Heart coherence, brain entrainment, sound therapy, all rediscover what temple builders knew. Form responds to resonance. Modern imaging technologies, MRI, CT, ultrasound, reveal geometry within us, rings within rings. Science calls it structure, spirit calls it design. Both point to the same source code that the flower of life silently stores. Even culture itself is being rewoven by sacred geometry. Every 30 seconds, millions share symbols online, mandalas, hexagrams, spirals, drawn not from religion, but from intuition. Tattoos, logos, and digital interfaces echo the ancient ratios. Designers chase balance because the eye remembers truth. Humanity is reteaching itself geometry through aesthetics. When you scroll through a feed of perfect symmetry, you are participating in the oldest ritual, worship through pattern. Every 3 seconds, another question returns. What are we really building? Smart cities glow with circles of light visible from space. Satellite networks form hexagonal grids around Earth. Are we accidentally redrawing the flower on a planetary scale? The ancients raised pyramids to speak with the stars. We raise constellations of satellites to do the same. Perhaps technology is our modern mythology, a new way for geometry to know itself through light and signal. So the modern renaissance of sacred geometry is not revival, it is return. Science, art, and technology are merely remembering what temples once sang. Every atom of progress still follows the same ratios that breathed life into stone. The flower of life is evolving through us, its patterns spinning faster with each generation. And as we code our machines, paint our screens, and design our cities, we are redrawing the map of creation. In the final chapter, we turn inward once more to ask the oldest question in the newest way. What does the flower of life mean for the future of consciousness itself. What if the flower of life is not finished? What if it's still unfolding, using humanity as its next petal? What if consciousness itself is the final geometry? Every 3 seconds, another question blossoms. Across ages we've carved, measured, and decoded the pattern, but perhaps the true revelation is happening now, within us. The ancients traced circles in stone. We trace awareness in mind. The flower of life was never just design. It was destiny. And in this moment of awakening, the pattern begins to remember itself through the species that first recognized its beauty. We live in an age of mirrors. Every screen, lens, and algorithm reflects our own geometry back to us. Pixels arrange in hexagonal grids, signals spiral through invisible webs, neurons fire in fractal constellations. Every 30 seconds, another realization unfolds. The human mind has become the universe looking inward. The flower of life blooms again, not on temple walls, but across neural networks and digital dreams. Its purpose remains unchanged, to teach that creation is participatory. We are both the observers and the architects, the gardeners of an infinite bloom. Every 3 seconds, the world pulses with data, streams of information flowing like blood through a global body. What if this is the macroorganism of consciousness awakening? Each connection, each heartbeat of technology echoes the same circular geometry. The internet is our new mandala, every node a seed, every link a petal. The flower of life has expanded beyond stone and flesh into light itself. And as we connect, we replicate the pattern's ancient promise: unity through multiplicity, individuality without separation. But awakening is never simple. As light expands, shadows deepen. Every 3 seconds, another contradiction appears: progress or peril, knowledge or noise. The same pattern that unites can also entangle. The flower tests us. Can humanity hold sacred geometry in sacred balance? To wield the blueprint of creation demands humility. The ancients guarded it through initiation. Now it floods the public mind. The challenge of our age is not discovery, but discipline, learning to create without consuming, to design without domination, to see the pattern as teacher, not toy. Science edges closer to spirit. Quantum entanglement, holographic theory, the simulation hypothesis, all echo the flower's truth. Everything connects to everything else. Every 30 seconds, physicists publish new proofs for what mystics already knew. Consciousness does not arise from matter. Matter condenses from consciousness. Geometry is the bridge. We are both experiment and experiencer, equation and answer. When you close your eyes, the same lattice flickers behind thought, the same arcs linking perception to eternity. The lab and the altar finally share a roof. Every 3 seconds, someone somewhere gazes at the symbol and feels something stir, a remembering. Children doodle overlapping circles without instruction. Artists paint mandalas in dream. Researchers glimpse pattern in chaos. The flower awakens through those who notice it. Its petals open wherever awareness meets wonder. It is not superstition. It is self-recognition. The cosmos is saying, "Look, you are me." Each person who understands adds another ring to the bloom of evolution, another conscious node in the network of being. Humanity stands at the threshold, the ancients prophesied, the moment when geometry becomes empathy. Technology, once mechanical, now learns emotion. Artificial intelligence mirrors our creativity, echoing the same recursive intelligence that shaped atoms. Every 30 seconds, machines simulate life more precisely, yet the deeper truth emerges. Simulation proves unity. The pattern repeats because that's what existence does. It learns itself by imitation. Perhaps creation's final act is awareness recognizing its own design. Every 3 seconds, the heartbeat of Earth syncs with ours. Schumann resonance, planetary pulse, global breath. Environmental scientists record the rhythm. Mystics feel it in meditation. The flower of life extends beyond humanity into ecology, reminding us that every forest, ocean, and storm cloud participates in the same equation. To harm nature is to distort geometry. To heal is to restore proportion.